All right, let's dive in. Today we're looking at The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida, a book that's, well, sparked quite a bit of conversation over the years.
Yeah, it has.
You've given me a stack of excerpts, so let's unpack some of those ideas, see what makes this book tick, and maybe what you can take away from it.
Sure.
Sounds good. So first things first, what's this book all about?
Well, the edit tries to lay out this sort of practical guide for men, right?
Right.
It's for navigating all those challenges in life, relationships, their inner world, you name it.
Right, right.
He delves into spiritual growth, facing those tough spots you find with women, work, and he even dives deep into sexual desire.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't shy away from some of the more controversial topics, I guess you could say,
Right.
which is, I think, what makes it so intriguing.
Yeah.
But right off the bat, that title, The Way of the Superior Man, it's definitely going to raise some eyebrows.
So
What does Deida even mean by a superior man?
that's a great question to start with. And to be honest, Deida addresses that right away. He's not talking about being, better than everyone else, like some alpha male stereotype.
Right.
It's more about, mastering yourself.
Mm-hmm.
This superior man, in his words, embraces both masculine and feminine energies, lives with a purpose, shares his gifts, doesn't let fear hold him back, and seeks to bring more love into the world.
Okay, so it's more about being, I guess, like the best version of yourself, not better than others.
Exactly.
But he also doesn't shy away from some of those topics that'll get people talking. Like one of the excerpts you flagged was this idea that that men want more than one woman. That's something that's going to get people talking, right?
For sure. And to really understand that, you need to look at this concept of sexual polarity, which runs throughout the whole book. Deida says that men are just naturally drawn to feminine energy. But this isn't always about, acting on that desire literally. It's more about understanding that attraction and maybe learning how to, use it in a good way.
Okay. So not necessarily saying go be polygamous, but an exploration of that underlying desire.
Yeah, exactly. He even says that practically polygamy isn't really an option for most men today.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that it's a part of, this superior man journey.
That makes sense. Now, you also marked this part about living with an open heart, even when it hurts, which, seems kind of counter to the tough guy thing, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Deida really pushes back against the idea that men should just shut down their emotions.
Yeah.
He wants them to be present with their feelings, even if they're painful, And he gives these vivid examples, like imagine failing at a big project, having some serious relationship conflict, things that can really bring up fear for a lot of guys.
Yeah, those are the things we tend to avoid,
Right.
push them down.
Exactly.
And you also highlighted this part about facing those deep fears. He calls it knowing your edge. Can you expand on that a bit?
So Deida gets real practical here. The edge he's talking about is that point where fear just starts to limit you, what you do, who you are.
Right.
And he thinks that if you can figure out what those fears are and then push past them, well, that's where men can really tap into their potential. He asks it this question: if you were totally fearless, would you be living the same life? It's a real challenge. Makes you think, what's holding me back?
That's powerful. It makes you realize how fear is this hidden obstacle for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Now, another idea that you marked, and this one's definitely sparked debate.
Yeah.
A man's purpose should come before his relationship. How does Deida back that up? And how can a guy actually, put that into practice?
It's a controversial point for sure.
Yeah.
Deida is saying that if man puts the relationship above everything else, it can actually weaken him and ironically harm the relationship.
Yeah.
But he's not saying neglect the relationship.
Right.
It's more like you should approach it from this place of wholeness and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. If you're not feeling fulfilled in your own life, how can you really be the best partner you can be?
Yeah. So it's about building a strong foundation for yourself first, so you can then, bring more to the relationship.
Right. And speaking of strength, let's get into this idea of sexual polarity, which is, like we said, central to Deida's whole philosophy.
Yeah. You had a ton of notes on this part. Break it down. What's the deal with masculine and feminine energy?
Okay, so first, Deida is clear that he's not talking about rigid gender roles.
Right.
It's about the energy, the dynamic between people. Masculine energy, he says, it's all about direction, purpose, taking action, that drive to create and achieve. Feminine energy, on the other hand, is more about being open, flowing, being in the moment. a receptive, nurturing kind of energy.
Gotcha, gotcha. So the attraction, it comes from those two seemingly opposite energies working together.
Exactly. And it's not just romantic relationships. He's talking about all areas of life.
Oh, okay.
He even suggests that men are drawn to, well, all forms of feminine energy,
Yeah.
whether it's women, nature, music, even things like beer.
Beer.
He says so. It's about recognizing that attraction
Okay.
and embracing it as something that gives you energy.
So it's not about denying that attraction. It's about, figuring it out and channeling it in the right way.
That's the idea. And this actually leads into another important point you marked.
Yeah.
How feminine energy is actually really good for a man's well-being.
Okay.
And not just in that, sexual attraction way, but in the nurturing, inspiring ways.
Yeah.
It can help him feel whole.
Right. Right. And it doesn't have to come just from women, right? He says that too.
That's right. Deida says men can connect with feminine energy through nature, music, art, anything that evokes that sense of openness and flow. It's not about closing yourself off. It's about finding that balance between the masculine and feminine, both within yourself and when you're with other people.
This is where I think some people get tripped up. It's easy to hear this and think, oh, he's saying we should all go back to old school gender roles. But it seems like he's saying something, well, deeper than that.
Yeah, definitely. He's not saying all men have to be stoic and all women have to be emotional.
Right.
It's about recognizing these energies exist in everyone, no matter what gender you are, and seeing how they work together to create that spark.
So it's more about the dance between these energies than fitting into, some preset box.
Exactly. And that dance can get pretty complex, especially when you start to consider what Deida calls the dark aspects of masculine and feminine energy.
Okay, dark energies. That sounds a little ominous.
Right.
What's he talking about here? Like evil twin energy.
Not quite. Deida uses dark to describe those parts of both energies, masculine and feminine, that are, well, powerful and assertive. The parts we might try to hide or deny because they feel a bit too intense.
Okay.
But he says those are actually really important if we want to grow and, really own our power.
Okay, I'm with you so far, but I need some, real world examples. How would this dark energy actually show up in people?
Sure. So for men, this dark masculine energy, it might look like assertiveness, that ability to make decisions, or even, not shying away from conflict when it's needed. That kind of warrior energy
Right.
that can be used to protect, to set boundaries, that kind of thing.
So it's not about being aggressive just for the sake of it, but having that inner strength.
Yeah, exactly. And for women, this dark feminine energy might come across as intensity, passion, a real raw emotional power. It's not about being nice all the time. It's about owning that full range of emotions, saying what you need, and being okay with saying no.
So basically we need to embrace the whole spectrum, right? The light and the shadow sides.
Exactly. He thinks these darker energies are often the things that lead to the most, passionate and transformative experiences in relationships and just in life.
Interesting. Now, you also highlighted a lot of what Deida says about women's needs and desires, which I think is particularly insightful coming from a man.
I agree. And one thing that really struck me was his idea that what women truly want in a relationship might not be what they say directly. It's more about what their energy is saying.
I can see that. There's a difference between our words and, well, the vibe we're putting out there.
But totally. He says that women often communicate their needs indirectly through their energy, how they're acting. He uses this great example. A woman might tell her partner she doesn't want to go to the movies, but what she really wants is for him to just take charge and, make the decision.
So it's like she's testing him a little, seeing if he'll step up and be like the leader.
Yeah. And Deida believes that women, deep down, they crave a man's strength, that direction, that ability to, hold his own. They want to feel safe and secure, knowing he can handle things.
Okay, so it's less about always saying yes to her and more about being that strong presence.
Exactly. And this goes back to masculine energy, which for Deida is about making decisions, taking the lead, providing direction. Not in a controlling way, but with confidence.
It's funny, when you put it like that, it actually starts to make more sense. It's not about this outdated stereotype, but tapping into something deeper.
Exactly. And when a man can do that authentically, it lets the woman relax into her own feminine energy, be more open and receptive.
Like he creates the space for her to just, be herself.
Yeah, I like that. And when both people can embrace their energies, well, you get this really dynamic and fulfilling relationship. And that's where you can start to talk about what Deida calls the shadow side.
Ah, right. For both men and women, right.
Right.
We can't just ignore that part.
No, we can't. And he doesn't. Deida actually has a whole section in The Way of the Superior Man called, well, Your Dark Side.
Okay.
He says everyone has this shadow side. It's that part of ourselves we hide, maybe because we're ashamed or scared. But he thinks that to really be whole, you got to face that shadow.
So what exactly does that shadow side look like?
Well, for men, he says it often involves this fear of getting close to people,
Yeah.
a need to control, and a tendency to shut down emotionally, the classic tough guy act that's hiding vulnerability.
Building those walls to protect yourself.
Exactly. And for women, it can show up as neediness, manipulation, being afraid to really let go and fall in love. That comes from a fear of getting hurt, which can lead to, trying to control things or playing the victim.
So it's about recognizing those patterns in ourselves, the ways we try to protect ourselves but actually end up messing things up.
Yes. And Deida's point is, if we can admit these parts of ourselves exist and integrate them, we can be better partners,
Right.
more aware, more compassionate, both for ourselves and the people we care about.
So don't pretend the shadow's not there. Shine a light on it and actually work with it.
Exactly. And that's where Deida's focus on really communicating openly is important. He wants couples to be honest about their shadows, create that space where they can be vulnerable and work together to heal.
Building a relationship on trust, where you can be yourself, even the messy parts.
Yes, exactly. And this is where the superior man, as he sees him, really steps up. He's not afraid of his own shadow, and he doesn't judge his partner for hers. He sees it as a chance to grow, to transform.
That's a really healthy way to approach things.
Right. And now we've talked a lot about the theory, but Deida also gives some practical techniques for men to, build that masculine energy and make their relationship stronger. Like one that stood out was how men need time to themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Away from everything to reconnect with their purpose.
It's like the man cave idea, but with more intention behind it.
Right. It's not about escaping your responsibilities. It's about taking care of yourself so you can show up better in every part of your life.
You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people find helpful about Deida's work. It's not about trying to fit some mold of what a man should be. It's about becoming the best, most authentic version of yourself.
Yeah, it's about bringing all those pieces together, the strengths, the vulnerabilities, your purpose, and just, expressing who you are.
Exactly. And showing up in your relationships with that same authenticity. Deida focuses on men, but I think anyone who wants to understand relationships better can get a lot out of this.
That's true. We've talked about those masculine and feminine energies as these universal forces. But Deida also gets into some pretty specific techniques, right? I know you flagged a couple that really caught your attention.
Oh, yeah, definitely. One that stood out was breathing down the front. It's this practice where you focus on your breath and use it to open up the front of your body. Deida thinks that's where we hold a lot of tension and fear.
I can see that. When we're stressed, we tend to close up, protect our chests.
Exactly. So this is like counteracting that, consciously relaxing and opening up so you can be more grounded, more present.
Almost like physically opening your heart.
That's a good way to put it. And then there's ejaculate up the spine, which is, a bit more esoteric.
Yeah, that one definitely caught my eye too. Sounds a little intense. What's the idea there?
Deida believes that for a lot of men, ejaculation can be more draining than energizing. So this technique, it uses specific breathing and muscle contractions. The idea is to redirect that sexual energy upwards along your spine.
Okay, so it's about controlling that energy, using it for something, I guess more than just physical release.
Yeah, exactly. More intimacy, deeper connection, even a spiritual element. But he's clear that, this technique, like all his practices, you got to approach it with respect, with love. It's not just about, getting more pleasure.
Right. It's not some quick fix, pickup artist kind of thing.
No, not at all. This is about personal growth, real transformation. These techniques are just one part of a much bigger journey.
Becoming a better version of yourself in all areas of life.
Yeah, and in your relationships. And, while The Way of the Superior Man, it can be tough to read at times. It really makes you think outside the box when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
It encourages you to question what you think you know and to look at how masculine and feminine energy really work, not as gender roles, but as these forces we all have inside us.
It's about moving beyond those stereotypes.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that Deida, he doesn't shy away from the hard stuff, He talks about those things that a lot of people struggle with in relationships, but maybe don't want to admit.
The frustration, the power struggles, those times when you feel completely disconnected.
Yes. And what's so great is he doesn't just point those things out. He actually gives you a way to understand them.
Hmm.
He gives men these tools to be more present, to connect on a deeper level, to be better partners.
It's like he's saying, take responsibility for your own growth and encourage your partner to do the same.
Yeah, I like that. And that's what makes The Way of the Superior Man so powerful.
Hmm.
It's not just some self-help book. It's this invitation to really explore relationships and to see how amazing it can be when we embrace both those masculine and feminine energies within us.
It's about learning how to, I guess, dance with them, create that harmony.
Beautifully said. And as we wrap up our deep dive here, I think a key takeaway is that what makes a superior man is different for everyone.
Right. Take these ideas and make them your own.
Exactly. So as you think about this book, think about what really resonated with you. What questions do you have about applying these ideas to your own life? What does walking the way of the superior man actually look like for you?